Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is a pleasure to rise to speak on this bill because I think this is an opportunity for the National Party to explain our sensible opposition to this bill. None of us want to see migrant workers or any workers exploited in any way, and I want to just acknowledge Ibrahim Umar for his bringing of this bill and likely to become law to the House, and can understand the reasons behind it and what you want to accomplish, and nobody disputes that. Nobody wants to see the bad actors, the people who are using their positions of power where they have more understanding of how to take advantage of people. Nobody wants to see that, and that's not right, and we do not in any way condone that. I think when we talk about legislation, and from our position, we look at what is the problem that we are trying to solve. And from hearing the story that you brought, the problem was that there was an imbalance of power and not understanding what the rights were, what the correct thing was to do. Now, criminal activity doesn't get it's never really, when you make something a criminal offence, does it really deter people? That's the real question. This is creating a new pathway into criminal law when there is already a pathway for resolution in the through the civil courts. So the ability for employers already exists to use the Employment Relations Act, Minimum Wage Act, Wages Protections Act, all have provisions that prevent unlawful deductions from wages, as do the Holidays Act. So when we think about what is it that we're trying to do here, putting it in under a new system or a different way of approaching this is not going to make it any quicker. So this is not going to increase people's access to justice. It may increase people's access to legal aid, and maybe that's the real reason that we're looking at it through this avenue. Because if you were to bring a matter through the civil court, my understanding is you don't have the same access to legal aid. So again, this is another problem. This is the problem. People can't afford to take the actions, and therefore they're not getting access to justice. That's a real problem, and we do need to look at that. And then, so by creating a pathway through the criminal system, we will actually likely slow down people's access to justice, because it takes a lot longer for these things to go through a criminal proceeding. Some of my colleagues have also spoken about the impact of the police needing to be involved in these proceedings as well. So we can imagine a situation, and yes, there's always hypotheticals to discuss, but look, we could have a situation where, as an employee is leaving an employment relationship for whatever reason, they can raise an allegation through this. And the fact of having to raise this allegation means it's then investigated, it goes through the police process, they come and knock on an employer's door. The employer has to defend themselves, and it adds more cost because they have to then employ a lawyer. So look at that, it's the lawyers. The lawyers are the ones who win in this. It's always the lawyers, isn't it? The ones who win here are always the lawyers. They're always the ones who win here. Now, I've got the privilege now of sitting on the Education and Workforce Select Committee, Madam Speaker, and I'm very, very glad, sad to see that Camilla Belch is no longer on it, because we would have had some good cross the seats discussions. However, now coming to speak on this bill, I can see that through the process, as the Chair, Katie Nimmin, pointed out so ably, is very well discussed and traversed all through the Select Committee. And I thought it was very interesting that some of the concerns that were raised through the submissions haven't been fully addressed. I thought it was interesting to read that the Council of Trade Unions pointed out that it would be hard, that mens rea would be hard to establish for non-natural persons. So do we actually have a resolution for that? I'm not sure. Also, Business New Zealand noted that in the high threshold of beyond reasonable doubt through the criminal system is imposed compared to the balance of probabilities that lies in the Standards Employment Court. So, and then how does this then makes the proving of intention becomes is quite difficult. It's hard for the prosecutors to have a greater burden of proof to say that this was an intention. And when it comes to, we know that proving intentionality can be very, very difficult. They've still got to prove that that's the case. And then if they're able to do that, is this a pattern or is this a one-off thing, is going to be an interesting part of the question. Madam Speaker, if you'll allow me to indulge for one very quick moment, Madam Chair pointed out of the committee pointed out to me that she omitted to make a very important acknowledgement during her speech, and I've undertaken to fix that error for her. So she should have he's no longer here, but anyway, she needed to acknowledge her husband Jeremy and his birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday, Jeremy, for tomorrow. Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Speaker. So look, this, as I said, if we want. Only 3 more minutes, says Duncan. Yeah, thank you. Do you have any more contributions to make to my speech? Look, when we are looking at this bill, the intentions behind it and the good intentions behind it, we absolutely acknowledge. there will be unintended consequences that come from this. My colleague Carl Bates pointed out that employers are a very valuable part of this relationship. It is a trusting, a situation, a relationship of trust should be in existence between employers and employees. This is a matter that's likely to affect very few people within employment relations because it is a very small number of people that are at that extreme bad end. So it will be, and the member opposite says that we don't know that, and it's already been pointed out that neither do they, because there is no good data on that, and maybe that is because there hasn't been the ability for people to bring this before the law. So it will be very interesting to see what happens. However, it will slow, everything that happens that is added through this process will slow down the justice system, and if every matter if every problem that needed to have a really careful, nuanced approach to it was given a legislative, a new legislative agreement, a way of going through it, it really is just going to clog things up. It's not solving the problems, the underlying problem being a mismatch of information, a mismatch of power that is abused. That's not going to be resolved by this change in the law, changing of avenues of recompense, and it's not going to solve the fact that, the fact that we have issues with access to justice because of cost in this country. That is a different matter, is a different problem. It is something that should be seriously considered, but taking this course of action to solve that problem that will result in other consequences may not be the effect that we wanted to achieve. So what we want to do is to eliminate migrant exploitation. We absolutely want to do that, but I do not commend the bill to the House for that reason.
Okay, so she brought up the NZCTU submission, and I actually have read their submission, and yeah, she is correct when she said that they point out that menswear can be very hard to establish for non-natural persons, but in that same submission, especially if you look under sections 5.2 and sections 5.5 and section 5.6, it states that theft ordinarily requires the mental element of intention in order for the offence to be completed. However, difficulty arises when trying to attribute this mental element to corporate entities and other non-natural persons, as artificial persons do not have minds in the conventional sense. Inputting a mental elements to these entities can be challenging. Now we'll go on to the next section. This does not mean, however, that corporations should be excused from being guilty of serious crimes. Corporations can act and do so in ways that have a deliberate and profound impact on human lives. Moreover, if a corporation can claim legal personhood and claim the advantages of acting as a person, it should also be held accountable for any crimes it commits while acting in its corporate interests. So that's what they put in their submission. So she's not really representing them honestly. And let's look at it from a bigger standpoint, right? From a bigger picture. Bad businesses or bad bosses that don't pay their workers are not good for local economies. You don't want them around. People don't want to work for them. Any experience they gained on the job goes elsewhere, like places like Australia. They have less money they can spend in their local economy, so that's the workers. They can't afford to move into the community if they are living elsewhere. It's a lose-lose. And in a nutshell, this bill's going to act as a deterrent against being a dickhead if you're a boss. So don't be a dickhead. Just pay your workers.
Oh, yes. I do like the one we talked about earlier of, what do you call it? It was about the wage theft one of like going, not stealing from your not stealing from your employees as a compliance cost.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Were you hit over the head before you made that speech? Like, gas leak? I don't know. Why are you saying dumb things?
So that could be quite an interesting design to actually have. Not stealing from your employees as a compliance cost. And then maybe we should send that to Carl Bates Wanganoi's office.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, but, I've worked in the forestry sector. There are other people that are here watching tonight who are workers. Do they think we are stupid?
Yeah.
We read up on this shit. We're political tragics around here.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram.